Before we get into the video, shout out to our sponsors Subside clothing brand. Subside is a new, up-and-coming clothing brand established in Bristol that is looking to add something different with their clean designs that celebrate their roots. You can find the link to all their social medias in the description of this video. From the Terrace Podcast and Subside clothing brand, it's a match made in heaven. Support the boys, support the grind, shop Subside. Hello and welcome back to the From the Terrace Podcast and another edition of Champ Talk. Regan, we're getting down to the business end of the season. We are officially in the second half of the season and things are starting to happen. Teams are starting to panic. Could never be my club, could never be your club. But the club that it is, is Cardiff. And we've been speaking for some time now about Neil Harris and the security over his job, and he has finally lost it. And Regan, I mean, thoughts, well, before we move on to who they've appointed in his place, thoughts on their 1-0 loss to QPR, the job that ultimately got him sacked, and how Neil Harris has done at Cardiff since he took charge?
The last season when he took over was very good, but I'm not sure what it was about this season. I'm not sure if it's because that loss to Fulham just killed them inside on something around the club. I'm not sure if a whole situation with Mendes Lang in the early stage of the season had a knock-on effect, but that's no excuse. I can't really put my finger on it. They just couldn't get results, similar to what Neil Harris in his second season at Millwall, which ultimately he left in the end. It's a very similar situation. He did well with Millwall in the first season, and he couldn't carry it on for not really a specific reason. And they came up against a QPR team that were full of momentum because they got Charlie Austin and they won their game beforehand. And I know I said the end of February I'll give him, but I literally said that on, I think, the 19th of January, and he got sacked on like the 21st. So I didn't think it'd be that soon. But if you didn't see this coming, then you obviously haven't been paying attention close enough, because him and probably Gary Rowett were the two closest to getting their jobs, losing their jobs. So it's no surprise to me. But what is a surprise is who they replaced him with. Yeah,
well, I mean, we'll get on to who they replaced him with in a minute. I mean, I think that is the nail in the coffin, isn't it? When you lose 1-0 at home to QPR, and you can't even score against a QPR side that we know are very weak at the back. And it was, I spoke to I went on that little Championship talk show in the week, and just after the news that Harris had been sacked, and I spoke to Ben from A View from the Ninian was speaking on there, and he was talking about, in terms of the next appointment, that Cardiff have been very much a team who have picked managers of the same ilk for a while now. They've picked the likes of Neil Warnock, you've got Neil Harris. They've had others before. They tried a different approach with Paul Trollope, didn't work. They had Malky Mackay, he didn't work. And since Warnock, it feels like that. Since Warnock, they've just tried to still stay with that sort of rust way of playing. And there was talk of they might appoint Craig Bellamy. That would go, lack of experience, would go down a different route. You'd thought he'd probably play attacking football. But they've gone with the same thing again. And it really does beg. You think, is there any progression at this club? They have appointed, obviously I'm alluding to Mick McCarthy as the next manager. He recently had a spell out in Cyprus that didn't go too well for him. But we know he did a brilliant job with Ipswich for many years. But the problem with how he did it at Ipswich was he did a great job on limited resources, but the fans got sick of how he played, and that ultimately lost his job. And he didn't really, apart from one anomaly season where he got him in the playoffs, progress him up the league too highly. He just kept them in the division, which, fair enough, with the squad he had was his job remit. It feels like you're just appointing more of the same, are you not? Are you really progressing, appointing Mick McCarthy rather than Neil Harris?
I think, if anything, you might be going a bit backwards, because at least Neil Harris and Neil Warnock, the intent was there that you want to push up. There's ambition in the club. You want to go up. I can't see that Mick McCarthy. He did that. Yeah, like you said, he had a season at Ipswich where he tried that. At Wolves, he really just steadied the ship at Wolves. And yeah, I just don't think it's a good appointment. To be honest, I didn't even know he was still in management, because the last time I heard of him, he was commentating on the Cardiff Fulham match in the playoff semi-final. That was the last time I heard of him. I couldn't understand a word he said, but I think that was. I'm just confused by it, because I know there's not a lot of managers out there at the moment, especially like bringing ones overseas, etc., with the current conditions. But yeah, it's a puzzling one to me. But I'm willing to give him a try. I'm willing to give him a shot and see what he does, because maybe he's reinvented himself. Maybe he knows exactly what Cardiff need to get these results that they haven't been getting. So I'm intrigued, but I don't have high hopes for him.
I think I'm very much in the same camp. I actually like Big Mick, and I hope he does well and he's at character to having a championship, especially. But it does feel like, yeah, you're right. It's not really a forward step at all. And Cardiff had the opportunity here to get him. I'm still baffles me of the few changes we've had in the championship so far, manager. How no one has taken a punt on Paul Cook is outstands me. I mean, the guy is. I mean, it's clear to see how good of a manager he is. I don't really understand how no one's gone for that. And we've seen some other. We've seen for the most part, other than Barnsley, the pointing elsewhere has not gone well. So yeah, I mean, Mick McCarthy's been out of the managerial merry-go-round for a while now. I mean, I'm not really counting his spell in Cyprus. That didn't last too long at all, and it seemed like a bit more of a publicity stunt than something that was actually going to work long term. But yeah, the appointment of Mick McCarthy at Cardiff is certainly a strange one. It doesn't seem like it's one that Cardiff fans are too happy about, but I'd be interested to be proven wrong. Anyway, Regan, we're going on to another game we are discussing. Firstly, the games in the last midweek, and then we're going to mention one of the weekend games as well. The first I'm going to bring up is top of the table. Norwich beat Bristol City by 2-0. I don't know if you got to catch the game at all, but it was. I mean, Norwich were brilliant, keeping the ball. Jordan Hugill with a brace. Good to see him scoring a couple of goals while Pukki is out. Although Hugill has now picked up an injury in the FA Cup, so they're without him too. You worry for Norwich where the goal threat is going to come from in terms of a striker. But Bristol City just sat back in two banks of four. Dean Holden's changed his system to 4-4-2. I don't get it. It seems like a complete change away from what they were doing well at the beginning of the season. They have had a lot of injuries, but Bristol City didn't even look like they were trying to score. And they're Norwich at top of the league. But this isn't the Premier League where you're going away to Manchester City, is it? Every team in the Championship can beat each other. And City didn't even give a go at it. I mean, thoughts on how Norwich are going to cope without a striker? I don't know. Pukki must be back soon, I would have thought. And also how things are going at Bristol City at the moment, because we'll elaborate later. Things behind the scenes aren't going brilliantly either.
I can see the mentality behind some teams that, Norwich are just this good that I don't think we can beat them. But under no circumstances, for a Bristol City team that should really be in and around the playoffs, should go to Norwich and basically let them attack you for 90 minutes. That's just unacceptable. That you're basically, you are a playoff team. Some of the players you've got, you are a playoff team. And you cannot do that against the best team in the Championship, possibly in quite a few years. The way they've been playing recently, they've been absolutely brilliant. So, I mean, I don't really have much to say on the game. We both expected Norwich to win, and they did. But it's just poor from Bristol City. I think Norwich will do well because when was it? I know when they had a lot of injuries, they only managed to lose that game to Luton, and they kind of steadied the ship. And they still have attacking threat. I mean, you can push Buendia up there if you want. By looks of it, he could be staying. I haven't really seen any advancements. I've heard stuff to links to Arsenal.
I think Buendia staying at Norwich to the end of the season is a dead cert.
Exactly, which is a boost to them. I mean, they've got attacking threat all over the pitch. I know they haven't got an out and out like prolific goal scorer, but if your team's that good, you'll find a way. And I think they won't. I think they won't worry. But yeah, a lot of stuff's going on in Bristol City, and I don't have a lot of faith in them, especially as much as I did at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I'm very much going on that route, and I mean, there's been things about behind the scenes of Mark Ashton there, who big member of the board, obviously, and he's been talking about Famara Giju's contract situation. Giju, a player that's not always preferred as a starter by many managers under LJ and Dean Holden, but when he does play, he seems to score goals, and he's definitely Bristol City's. You'd probably say with Naki Wells out of form, Bristol City's biggest goal threat. He's out of contract at the end of the season, and Ashton's come out and said that he came out and blurting out to Sky that he's happy to see Giju run his contract down. They have offered him a new contract, but he doesn't look like he's going to accept it at the moment. I mean, I'd be worried about how Bristol City's being run behind the scenes at the moment. and on the pitch, it's not looking too clever either. Do you think, with hindsight, looking back at this was definitely a job for Chris Hughton rather than Dean Holden?
I mean, you can have arguments for both. You can say that Dean Holden, he kind of knew the players already, and he kind of knew how to organise them. But if your ambition at a club, which it should be for Bristol City, is to try and push towards a playoff spot, then you need experience. That's literally what you need. You've got quite a few young players in there. You've got quite a few experienced players in there, and you need a level-headed, experienced manager to basically solidify your team. And Dean Holden just isn't that for me. Chris Hughton, he obviously was available, and I'm not sure if they even started talks with him. I'm not sure if if the board just went, okay, maybe he's not the man for us. We'll just go for the safe route. But yeah, the amount of managers that, like I said about Cardiff, the amount of managers that were out there at the time, just to go for your assistant basically is, I think, it's a poor move, and that's another sign of a team not really showing a forward step. Because I can't remember many teams apart from, well, actually Fulham with Scott Parker, with many teams that really hired their assistant and really made forward steps. I'm not sure what the idea is. I'm not. Do I suggest that they maybe look for other options elsewhere? I mean, the manager pool's quite light at the moment, but I mean, if your mindset is you want to get into the playoffs, which obviously based on the Norwich performance you don't, but if you want to, then maybe you need a more experienced manager to basically get your players together, because at the moment this club is in an absolute state.
I mean, it is. I think Bristol City's injury record is shocking, and that is what has. They've lost some momentum from that, and you can't take away. It's unfortunate for Dean Holden, especially to have to deal with such a big injury list in his first managerial job. But I mean, in terms of behind the scenes, that's another problem, that injury thing, because Joe Williams, who signed from Wigan in the summer, came out and sort of slammed the physio department for not being good enough. Just not something I hear from your new signing, and there's been talk about that before. And that physio department Bristol City currently have worked at West Ham and worked at Arsenal, two clubs that had terrible injury records. So it's not particularly like they were it feels like that appointment was strange to get that physio department in. It just feels like the big footballing decisions at Bristol City, although maybe off the decisions away from the football in terms of building a brand is going brilliantly there. The footballing decisions seem to be questionable, and you got to put that down to Mark Ashton. Anyway, getting away from Bristol City, we will move on to the final game. We're going to talk about one of the weekend games, which is part of this game week, which we are going to predict for the midweek. Watford won 2-1 away at Stoke. And before we get to read on what, I've moved on too quickly, haven't I? I have moved on too quickly. Got to mention, how could I forget Brentford beating Luton by 1-0. So we will move on to that Watford game next. But Brentford beating Luton by 1-0. Saman Ghoddos with a goal, a player who's just recently joined permanently. He was on loan for the start of the season. Now he's joined on a permanent basis and scoring goals since that's happened. So that looks like a positive for Brentford. But I think the thing I wanted to touch on more rather than the game, I'll tell you what, Luton did not deserve to lose that game. Very good performance, and fair play to Nathan Jones. He's got, like we've said plenty of times, he's got Luton playing really well this season. I think the thing I wanted to touch on was Brentford's recruitment in January, and it feels like a lot of clubs at the top are making signings. You've seen Swansea, Conor Hourihane on loan, and they brought in Morris to go up top. You have, my mind's gone blank now. Yeah, Norwich have brought in a new fullback because they've had a problem with fullback. You got other teams bringing in players, and then you got Bournemouth getting Jack Wilshere, and Brentford have been very stagnant in the market. And although due to an injury list is probably where the lack of depth is coming at Brentford at the moment, it is a concern. And I know a lot of Brentford fans are concerned that this team at the moment has only 2 fit centre backs, has 1 fit holding midfielder, is looking very light, and 1 left back, seeing as Dom Thompson was sent out on loan. And it feels like Brentford fans, though nothing has happened yet, you can't expect, especially with the Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday fixtures coming up. Very busy. I think we've got 4 weeks in a row where it's Saturday and midweek. it feels very silly not to bring in maybe one or two bodies. And Brentford, we know, are a club who are not very reactionary. They're proactive, and they will see that maybe Norgard's coming back, and I think there's no point in bringing someone through the door. You can't help but think, just go away from that just for a brief spell when you're clearly in a very different season. Bringing in a centre-back on loan, bringing in a midfielder on loan might be a good idea. Although Brentford hate the loan market, is investing in a loan deal that's maybe £500,000 a good investment if it ultimately gets you promoted? I think it is. I mean, I said I was going to go on a rant. I don't want to get too on Brentford's ball because Brentford get it right all the time. They always get it right. But it just seems very silly to go into the rest of the season with 2 fit centre-backs and 1 fit holding midfielder. Vitaliano having to play 60 minutes against Leicester. Now he's got to play 90 against Swansea on Wednesday. Seems like a very strange situation there. There's been links with Dembele from Peterborough, although I really want that something to happen. That doesn't seem like a priority to me at all at the moment. So I don't know what's going on at Brentford, to be honest. But you've got to trust in the board of what they've done. But Brentford are being very much on their heels in this January transfer window, and it feels like a lot of clubs might be getting an advantage over them. Anyway, we'll move on to that Watford game, as I mentioned, Regan. And I was going to say, before we get on to Watford, I want to mention Stoke and I want to mention the chasing pack of the playoffs. We're starting to see a gap build there. Do you think we are starting to see this top 6 form already? Or is there anyone in that chasing pack you do give a chance of getting into the top 6?
Looking at the table right now, I think that it's pretty much the same as what I think it will be. But I still have doubts over Reading, just because I think that, we saw after their amazing run, if they lost one game, they lost about 4, 5, 6, and that's in the back of my mind that may happen. But looking around the chasing pack, Middlesbrough they're not the team or they were after beginning of the season. They've conceded a lot more goals. Stoke are without him. Blackburn are, I'm going through the teams right now. Blackburn, they're a bit too inconsistent. Bristol City at the moment, no. Preston, no. Barnsley, fair play to them, but no, I can't see that. So I think, it's going to be very interesting. It's just about momentum at the back end of this season. I know we're not there yet, but I think it will remain close. I think Bournemouth will leapfrog Reading. And I think it's that last playoff spot is similar to what it was last season. That's going to be up for grabs between 2-3 teams. I don't know what teams there are yet because I feel Blackburn's got a strong team that can push in there. Middlesbrough have got a great manager that can push them in there. Stoke, because I know Stoke are looking in the transfer market still for another striker. If they can get that, then by all means they should be up there. Reading are on a good run; they can keep that up there. But I think out of all the teams, if they can't bring a striker in, I fear for Stoke because they haven't actually got any good results at the moment. And they don't really have an amazing goal scorer I can look at week in, week out and saying, this is a striker that's going to lead a playoff team into the remainder of the season. I can't see that. So it's going to be interesting that final spot. The top 5 are dead set in a random order. It's that 6th spot which I'm worried about.
I'm moving on to Watford. They are winning by the odd goal a lot. It seems to be squeezing past opponents. It doesn't seem to be too convincing, and I'm still not completely convinced by them. But they are currently in 3rd, albeit have played a couple more games in Brentford. How do you see the automatic promotion race lining up at the moment? We'll get on to predictions in a minute, but actually, we've spoke about the automatic promotion place a lot. But in terms of an actual team, do you see Watford as actual contenders for the top 2? Or are you can you see them being a team that's got a chance there? Or for you, really, are they not a team that will get top 2 at all in terms of your thinking?
I think quality-wise, they can definitely get top 2. But it'll be interesting to see what with this manager when they lose their first game and how they come back from that, because they're going to lose a game between now and the end of the season. It's going to happen unless they go on this amazing run. if they get excuse me, if they come back well from a loss, then that'll be I'd say that they've got a good a chance as any, because I think Norwich is a dead set at this point. And I mean, I know Brentford are kind of light in their team, but they have the quality to get there, and Swansea just don't really show any signs of slowing down. So if Watford can keep their momentum and they can respond well to losses and drop points, etc., then I have no reason to say why not. Why can't they make top two? They've got the quality there, and if they can keep their togetherness throughout tough times, then that's a top two team for me.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the next few game weeks ahead. We've got, obviously, we're going to predict the midweek games, and next weekend we've also got a couple of big games in there. There are some big games at the top that will start deciding, and you'll be able to see what teams are dropping off and what teams are really going to be in the mix for that automatic promotion spot, because it's very close at the moment. There's like, how many points is there in it? There's about let me look here. You've got 2 points from fifth to second and 4 points from sixth to second. So all of those teams in the playoffs is about making a run now. Who's going to get that run? At the moment, it's currently Brentford and Swansea on those runs, but that can change before the end of the season. Anyway, Regan, we'll get into predictions and let us know how we did in terms of midweek and these first few games of this game week.
All right then. Well, we predicted the weekend ones away from camera, because there was only 4.
Yeah.
But so this is the ones we're going to predict now are also the ones carrying on from the weekend. So at the moment it's 2-1 to me, because Bill still doesn't back Watford, and we don't back QPR on this channel, sorry. So, I mean, that's a point for us for backing Derby, and I back Watford, as I continue to do. I think I was watching a few of our videos back, and I think I've probably gained about 5-6 points from Watford alone, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, not backing them.
And, we both predicted Reading over Preston. And I mean, it should have been, but thanks to Lucas Shaw for missing that penalty.
Mm-hmm.
And Blackburn beat Middlesbrough, which I think was quite surprising, especially because last time I watched that game for our news night, it was 0-0 and one of the worst games I've ever seen. So thanks for scoring in that game, and not my one.
It was hardly a corker, though, was it? It was only 1-0.
Yeah, exactly, but it's a goal nonetheless. So that's 2-1 so far this week, with six more in total. And just to touch on last week, it finished 6-5 to me. I got rid of the scores, but I can't remember what. I think it might have been Nottingham Forest or something like that I got a point off. So it's now it's still 127, 113. But if you include the 2 points so far, the lead for the first time ever is 15.
Yeah, so much for coming back. But like you said, we do have 6 more games of this game week to predict. There's still time to bring it back a little. We'll get straight into it, and then we'll go Bristol City Huddersfield is the first game on the Tuesday night. I said there's a couple of decent games this week, but that doesn't really scream out as one of them. But that is a hard game to call, is it not? Bristol City with a good performance against Millwall in the FA Cup, but struggling in the Championship, as we mentioned. And Huddersfield maybe got, I don't know, maybe not as many as the good results as of recent, but still a team that throw up a surprise.
Yeah, I think these two teams are very hard to predict, because I rarely predict Huddersfield at away from home, because their home form is so good, but away from home they seem to be terrible. But all the stuff going on at Bristol City at the moment, I'm not sure if I can back them. I've just seen here that Huddersfield have won 1 game out of their last 6. I actually didn't realise that, which included home losses to Reading and Plymouth. So maybe that home form isn't very good. And Millwall, okay, yeah, no chance. Bristol City going to win.
Ooh. I'm going to back Bristol City as well, just because that Ashton Gate. Just because, I don't know, City win these games, I think, and that's why they're still a top 10 side. They're still in the top 10. City should have as we mentioned, Huddersfield have thrown up surprises this season, but in terms of quality of squad, I mean, I saw they signed Richard Keogh. I mean, Jesus wept. He's back in the Championship. Doesn't that say it all? Bristol City in terms of quality should win this game. So I'm going to go for Bristol City. Millwall-Watford is the other Tuesday night game, Regan.
I mean, well, as soon as I started slating Millwall, they kind of put a few results together. I mean, that win against Huddersfield was good. But
Nice FA Cup now.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, they got ruined by Bristol City, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't knock back Watford. I can definitely see a draw coming out of this game because Watford only win by slender margins, and if you want to draw, you play against Millwall. But I think I'm just going to go for the better team just to be safe. So I'm going to say Watford.
You mentioned that stat there, and I probably would have gone for draw if you hadn't mentioned that. But I've got to go for Watford. I've got to, because just they do seem to be a team that let down my predictions quite a lot, and I don't back them. So I'm going to go for Watford. Barnsley, Cardiff on the Wednesday night. We're going to be Mick McCarthy's first game in charge. Away at Oakwell is not really an easy place to start.
It isn't.
Cardiff get that new manager boost.
You're kind of going in blind to this game with the knowledge on Cardiff, because Mick McCarthy can line up with a completely different team, completely different formation, completely different tactics, and it's just how Barnsley really play against that. So it's almost a flip of a coin. But that win at home and to Norwich for Barnsley, I'm going to go off that, and it's at Oakwell and it's on a Wednesday. Come on, it's got to be Barnsley, surely.
I'm going Cardiff. Now, I get what you mean. They beat Norwich. They're a good team, and I actually really like Barnsley in terms of in terms of on the field, not particularly off it. But I just think Mick McCarthy is such an instant impact manager. I'm not saying it's going to particularly go well for him in the long run, but instant impact, Big Mick comes in and he gets rid of all of them. The BS, as you would say. I'm going to go Cardiff. I think he nicks it. It's Big Mick, isn't it? He'll get all the hype. He'll probably go on a little run at the start. It wouldn't surprise me, and then it'll fall off, and Cardiff will stay mid-table. But just fancy Big Mick to go there and get well drilled into his players from the off. So I'm going to back Cardiff in that one. Coventry, Sheffield Wednesday, not particularly a thriller, Regan. I think the sooner we move on from this one, the better. But what are we saying in terms of predictions?
I don't really ever back the away team against Coventry as St Andrews, and I've just seen that Sheffield Wednesday haven't played in the league since New Year's, which isn't great. But it's Coventry at St Andrews, and I continue to back them, so I will. So I'm going to say Coventry.
I'm going to go for Coventry. I think although it's nice to have a rest, you actually do see in a sort of Brentford against Luton. Second half, you lose all that energy because you're just not used to being match fit again if you've had that so much time off. So, and I mean, Sheffield Wednesday aren't particularly a good team either, so I'm going to go for Coventry in that one. Penultimate game of the game week is Middlesbrough at Rotherham. Is it simple as a Middlesbrough win?
I think so, yeah. I think it's going to be a close one, maybe a 1-0, 2-1 or something like that. But I think Neil Warnock, because Neil Warnock will just better. He's just better tactically than Rotherham. So, yeah.
I'm going to join you, Middlesbrough when it has to be. And finally, Regan, the massive game of the week. This is about as big as it gets in the Championship at the moment. It's Swansea versus Brentford, the two playoffs. They played each other in the playoff semi-finals. Brentford came out in top last season. They also came out in top in the league. This season, Brentford and Swansea drew 1-1 in the reverse fixture. The two most informed teams in the division, Brentford on a 15-game unbeaten run in the Championship. Swansea winning all their games, not conceding goals. Beat Nottingham Forest 5-1 in the FA Cup on the weekend. Signing new players. I mean, this is probably as tough as it gets for both sides, is it not? Who are you fancying in this one?
It's basically which team is going to lose their undefeated record, apart from if it's going to be a draw, which I don't think it's going to be. I think a team is going to lose their league record, and I am going to go that Brentford are going to lose that record. I'm going to go for Swansea. I mean, I back them all the time, and I've backed Brentford every single time as well. So I should really go for draw, but I can't look past Swansea. They are the most informed team. If you're looking over recent game weeks, they've been brilliant. So I'm going to have to say Swansea, unfortunately.
Got to join you. As much as it pains me to say it, it's going to be Swansea. I think, like I've mentioned, I think Brentford's team are going to be tired. I just think there's vital positions. We're having to rely on the same players a lot of the time. Swansea are just and Swansea are just on immaculate form, and Brentford, although unbeaten run is brilliant, and I mean you can't be bad and have that unbeaten run, and Brentford is still well up there and have got a good chance of automatic promotion. I just think Swansea aren't just beating teams; they're sort of dominating games and wiping the floor with them. Whereas I don't think Brentford are quite doing the same. It was pretty. It was a gritty display against Luton. They just hung on to only win 1-0. And there's been a lot of wins like that. Brentford, I just think Swansea. Unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it, I'm going to probably turn up and give Brentford a footballing lesson. The only thing that gives me hope, I think if Brentford get an early goal, as hard as that is against Swansea, I think if Brentford get an early goal, Brentford are brilliant at defending Leeds at the moment, and are very much a good team on the counter attack. So if Brentford get the first goal, I think Brentford nick it. But I just can't see it. I think Swansea. It's not going to be a thrashing, but I think Swansea win this 2-0, 2-1, something along those lines. And they're just so in form at the moment. And to be honest, as much as I haven't backed them this year at the moment, but especially bring Conor Hourihane in, the new forward as well. For me, it's looking like Swansea and Norwich could be our top two this season unless Brentford do something in last week of the transfer window. So much as it pains me to say, I'm going to back Swansea in this one. And that's our predictions done for this week, Regan. We will be back later in the week as we've got a whole schedule of championship games, as long as COVID doesn't ruin any of them. All the weather, the lovely snow we've been having, some tasty ones in there. Be nice to see how Borough do at Norwich and along those lines. But anyway, that is this week's champ talk over and done with. Remember, if you did like the video, subscribe to the From the Terrace podcast YouTube channel. Leave us a rating on iTunes. Follow us on Spotify. And we'll see you in the next.
Spotify.